Hello and welcome to City Beat. I'm your host, Greg, the Public Services Supervisor from the Lewiston City Library. Joining us today is Travis Myklebust from the Lewiston City Fire Department. Welcome, Travis. Thanks for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for inviting us, Greg, very much.
All right. So what are we going to be talking about today,
Well,
Travis?
a couple things today. One, we wanted to talk about, ways of how the fire department has to gain access into private residences and businesses when people aren't home or they're unable to get to the door. And the other is just why we send the number of personnel we do to certain emergencies. So those are some of the things we'd like to talk about today.
Well, that's great. That's great. What are we going to start with?
Well, actually, first let's talk about access, because it's one of the hardest things we run into. And one thing we don't want to do is have to create damage to a person's home. And so there's a program that we do here in the fire department, and a lot of businesses know about it because some of it falls under statute and code that they are required to have these boxes. But the residential home is one area that we find not all people know that there are devices out there that would allow us to gain access. And what it is it's called a Knox box. And it's a device that can be mounted on the door or on the building, and it allows the fire department to gain access to their home because they put keys inside these boxes.
So it's kind of similar to what a real estate agent or someone would use on the outside of a property to show that
Absolutely.
On the inside.
Very similar to that. There's different styles for it. The luxury of this is the box is designed specifically for one community, which means that only the fire department has the key to get in to open up the box, which then would have keys, or sometimes we have commercial buildings that utilize a coded card that we'd have to swipe. But whatever it is to gain access, we have that. And so it provides that protective ability for their security. And then, like I said, we have the devices on the keys on all the apparatus that are actually locked up.
Oh, that sounds great. And who would really benefit, or who have you seen benefiting the most from these Knox boxes?
Well, a lot of them is we see some of our elderly people in our community because they're the ones that they live by themselves. And so they fall, they become injured. One of the things we run into is they've fallen, they are able to activate 911, but the door is locked. And then we get there, no one else can get to the door. And obviously there's an emergency. So the crews, we utilize our brothers and sisters in law enforcement to help us. And we try to minimize the damage, but when someone's in need of medical attention, we try to get in there. And so that's the targeted population we think would be is those that are by themselves, don't have family nearby, that have the potential of being injured or ill and can't get to the door to let us in.
Oh, absolutely. I know. I want you guys coming in. If I call, I want someone coming in the door one way or the other. And this sounds like a great alternative to the old axe on the front door.
It is,
situation.
yeah. It's much better than the big boot to the front door and kicking it in. This is a device, and it is a device that does cost money. It's not a free option for it. But if you look at, if we had to take through, whether it be a window or a door, the repair at one time would offset obviously the cost of the device.
And where would someone in the community go about getting a Knox box?
What they would do is they actually would come into the fire department to our administrative office at 1245 Idaho Street, and all they would do is request an application for a Knox form, and it's a special form that has our numbers. They will fill that out. They send the form and the check, or if they want to do it by credit card, to Knox Company, and then Knox will ship them the device. Once they get the device, they will call us up and they have it mounted, and then we will go out once they're ready. We will open it up with our key, and then we'll insert their keys into it, lock it up so that it's finally secure. And there are devices that mount on the wall, but now they have them for residential that literally could go over the door, so they don't have to permanently mount something on a building.
Oh, that's a great alternative.
It is a benefit.
And what do these Knox boxes look like?
Actually, I brought a commercial one if you want to see what it looks like.
Great.
And basically they're well built. And like I said, this is a commercial, so it's a little bigger. I mean, you can hang on. They're a heavy, well-divided box. But it'll have we'll put the keys inside there or whatever else information, and then we come in with our key. And like I said, the box is specifically keyed only for Lewiston Fire Department, and only the fire department has the keys for it. And then we'll come in, and so it's very secured. But it's a great device. We've used it in commercial, but what we want to do is get the information out for our residents in the community to know that there is a tool they could purchase that will allow us to have access to not do any damage if there was an emergency.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah. So that's kind of the Knox box.
Yeah, and are these fairly new? Or have
Well,
these been in use for a while?
They have been in use for a while, but the really pushing the component of the residential side is somewhat new. The commercial, we've done that, and you know, people will start going around, and you'll look at usually close to the entry door of a commercial building, you will see this box there, and that's what it is it's the Knox box that allows us to have entry into those buildings.
That's great. I did not know that. So
Yeah.
now I'm going to be seeing them everywhere.
Yeah,
it's like
you'll be
when
looking
you buy
to-
a new car
Yep.
and everyone has the same car. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So we're going to talk about some other things today
We are.
as well?
Probably one of the biggest questions we receive in the fire department is, why did that great big red fire truck follow an ambulance to a medical call?
You probably do get that
And,
question.
and we
quite
get it.
often.
And so what we want to do is kind of show and do a live demonstration of a mock cardiac arrest to show why the number of people arrive on a medical call. So we've got our on-duty medic and engine crew that are going to come in, and they're going to really show us what a cardiac arrest event would take and the number of personnel.
Oh, that sounds great. So they've arrived at the scene and
Yep.
got to the Knox box and came
Yep.
on in and
Gain their access to it. And the crews, basically what's going to happen is when the crews are coming in on this, they're going to, of course, assess the circulation, the breathing, and airway component of it. They're going to initiate and start immediate CPR. And one of the things we do is we're kind of different in Lewiston than a lot of others. Actually, most of the emergency providers in the LC Valley do this. But you're going to see what's called high-performance CPR.
okay, I have not heard of that before.
Yeah,
I mean, I've heard of CPR. It's
Yep,
been
you've probably
around a
taken
little
a
while.
CPR class before, I'm
Yes,
sure.
Yeah.
And so what high performance CPR is one of the things that the American Heart Association has proven to us is that chest compressions is one of the most important skills to have in saving somebody's life. You know, if you've had a CPR class in the past, you probably remembered airway, breathing, circulation. You had to do mouth to mouth. What we focus on is compressions are one of the most important factors, and actually they have scientific data that shows pauses in CPR over 10 seconds can decrease the survivability rate. So what our crews do is we have fresh personnel doing compressions, and they don't pause for anything. You'll watch the medics, they're getting an IV started, they're working on an airway, they've got the cardiac monitor that they're gonna work on the heart, and then the compressions is still going forward while everything else is taking place. And so we don't interrupt the compressions. The only time really we stop a compression with high performance is just to administer the shock.
We're going to charge up the shock.
So it looks like that's coming up here in
Yep,
just a
you can
moment.
hear the machine is charging. He's going to clear. They administer the shock, and he immediately is going right back onto doing the chest compressions. And what you'll find is, you know, firefighters, we're fit and we don't want to give up. One of the things we found is even after 2 minutes of doing CPR, you start to get a little bit tired. And when you get tired doing CPR, your body weight starts to press over onto the patient. When that happens, we call it camping out on the chest. But it doesn't allow the heart to refill fully because there's still pressure down on top of the chest. And so what we do is we put the fresh person so that they're able to get a good compression and allow the heart to recoil and fill back up full of blood again.
Wow. So how long have you been using this technique versus the old
We
method?
started high-tech CPR about 2 years ago in February. And one of the things we found is we have had a higher success rate and survivability with performing that than just the old standard CPR that we've done in the years. So what we find in a cardiac arrest event is you can just see the number of personnel. We have 2 of the individuals are on the ambulance, and then the other 3 are on the engine company. So they came in the big red fire truck. The other 2 came in the ambulance. But you can see to this how many skills are being administered simultaneous.
Yeah, everyone kind of has their specific task and working all in unison, and communication seems pretty open. I mean, it's
Everyone kind of knows what everybody's job is, and you notice there isn't a whole lot of verbal communication. There's simple stuff, and you notice they switch compressors. You didn't even probably catch that it's a different person doing compressions.
I just, when we looked back up and noticed that, I noticed it was a different person, but I didn't even notice the transition from one to the next. And
It is. It's just a seamless transition as we go through that. But imagine this. Now imagine if there's only the 2 people on the ambulance. they're trying to administer chest compressions. They're trying to secure an IV for our medication route. We're trying to secure an airway by putting a tube down their windpipe like we've seen, and yet we have to run the medications in the defibrillator. Here's the other part. Now we've got to now get the patient loaded up from the home to the ambulance and now head to the hospital.
Yeah, I was just going to say that might be very difficult with only 2 people. And then where does the one person go to go get the stretcher?
Yeah, so you have to, what happens is now, without the additional engine crew, we start to jeopardize patient care. And that's what we in the fire department are not about. It's about the citizens, that's why we're here. And so their goal is to allow the best care for the patient. And even when it's not a cardiac arrest event, you take someone who's just having chest pain, there are still assessments that have to be done. There's vital signs to be taken. There's a 12-lead EKG that has to be done. There's an IV that has to be started, oxygen administered, medications given. So even when they're breathing and conscious, it still takes 4 to 5 personnel for this.
Yeah, and you mentioned the 12...
The 12 lead?
The 12 lead, yeah. I was like, most of the other things I've kind of heard of before, but a 12 lead, I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, well, if you've ever had or known somebody that's gone into the hospital, they'll talk about doing an EKG. What a 12 lead is, it looks at 12 different leads of the heart, and we can determine whether there is actual heart attack occurring on the outside of the heart, on the back of the heart, on the inside of it. And they do that through our monitors. And through grants we have secured, were we able to actually have the 12 lead capability on all of our units.
Oh, that's great.
Now you see, watching this, they're moving that across. Now imagine 2 people, if it's just a medic crew, they're having to do this, yet still try to do chest compressions, because I'd mentioned earlier, pauses kill.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what it is. Time is life when it comes to the heart muscle. And then, so even if there is 2, now they're going to get to the ambulance. Somebody's got to drive, and someone's left by themselves in the back. Right now, what's going to happen is they are going to transport, and one of the engine company personnel, or 2, depending on the size of the engine company, will ride in the back with the paramedic, and then the other 2 will drive the apparatus. So still, even to the hospital, there'll be 2 or 3 in the back administering patient care.
So you've still got the compressions going, you've still got...
Everything they just watched here has to continue all the way to the hospital. Absolutely.
It's a very involved process. And
very involved process, as we've just watched there. There's a lot to it.
Yeah. Well, and I noticed, so, I'm used to the old board stretcher. Obviously, don't use those anymore.
Well, we do have the boards, but we utilize those more for motor vehicle accidents and stuff. What you saw is what we call a scoop stretcher. And you notice it was in 2 pieces.
Mm-hmm. And
we don't have to
different
roll.
adjustments depending on how long the patient is or short the patient is, in my case. So
yeah. It is a great tool for us to operate, and of course that allows them, because the gurneys are large and most homes are never built or designed for taking people out of, and so a lot of the times the gurney has to sit out the front door, and then they will transport on that scoop stretcher to the gurney to get them the rest of the way out of the structure.
Yeah, I noticed the gurney was a little larger than what I've seen in the past, and it was mechanical. It wasn't old-fashioned running down the hallway.
Yeah,
so.
they're not an electric lift gurney that has it has a piston in it that utilizes hydraulic pressure, and they will lift assisted up to 700 pounds, so they have a bigger capacity. But one of the things we know is our patients have gotten bigger over the years, and what we found in the past is injuring people due to lifting up the gurney with the patient on it.
Yeah, and then when you're talking about injuring people, you're talking about injuring the help that's coming, responders, and the assisting folks, not the patient themselves.
That is correct.
So I bet that's a really nice new... Is it fairly new in the industry, or is it?
It is newer in the industry. Probably in the past, I would say 7-8 years is when we started seeing the electric gurneys come into the mix. And then we've had them for about 4 years. And it was truly due to some significant injuries with our employees that we realized what tools are out there that we can take and we can provide for our responders. And that's what we've done, is taken that in, and we take that electric gurney, and allows the medics now, especially loading into the ambulance, what they do is, it used to be one holding the gurney and one had to lift up the legs. Now we can have 2 people holding the end of the gurney. push the button, the legs retract, and then we're able to load them in the ambulance and take off.
And with the additional staff that you have on site, that it helps as well.
Absolutely.
Because the gurney to me looks a little heavy, so even when you're retracting the legs and holding it just for a moment, it seems like that could be a little...
Yeah, the gurneys truly will weigh, they weigh about 60 pounds more. And then because of trying to get them into homes, we also have a mechanized stair chair now, which is a chair that you sit on, but it's got tracks. So truly one person can go down a set of stairs on this device and assist them in or out of a structure.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That sounds great.
It is. You know, the goal is trying to provide and get the right tools for our employees and also make it much safer for the patient, because you don't want to have someone strapped to one of those chairs or a gurney and of course they go over and yeah, so it's a pretty good tool for us to have.
Sounds like it. Well, I've really enjoyed having you on today, Travis. Is there anything else that we didn't cover today?
You know, I think we've covered the bulk. Like I said, our big message is one of knowing, yes, there are means so that we don't have to break in to get into someone's home. And then the other is to know why on medical calls do you see a fire engine following an ambulance? And I guess the other side question that we get is, why does an ambulance then go following the engine to a house fire? And what people don't realize is every member of the Lewiston Fire Department is what we call cross-trained. Every person in the fire department is a firefighter, and every person is at least an EMT or a paramedic. And so when that ambulance is following the fire engine and you see the big smoke column, they may be, and actually the crews we just saw here, that medic crew would actually probably be the first person through the door. If we had a structure fire, they'd be the nozzle crew or be in the search and rescue crew. So we wear many, many hats in this department.
Oh, very cross-trained. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, again, Travis, thanks. I think the Knox box is great. Hopefully more people in the community will reach out and get those.
Absolutely.
It's been very informational today. So on behalf of our guest Travis, the Lewiston City Fire Department, and everyone here at City Beat, we'll see you next time on City Beat.